Thank you. Good morning. My name is Michelle Wu, and I chair the City Council's Committee on Planning, Development, and Transportation. I'm joined for our hearing today by my colleague, District 2 City Councilor Ed Flynn, and we'll get to our panel very shortly. I do want to remind everyone that this public hearing is being recorded and broadcast on channels Comcast 8, RCN 82, and Verizon 1964. It will be replayed on Saturday, April 28th at 5 p.m. Mark your calendars. If you could please silence your cell phones and other devices, and we will take public testimony at the end if anyone wishes to sign in and testify. Today's hearing is on dockets 0842, 1158, and 1159. These matters are sponsored by various petitioners and were referred to the Committee on Planning, Development, and Transportation on June 6, 2018 for the first docket, and August 1st, 2018 for the last two dockets. So I'm going to read them into the record, and then we do have withdrawal. But for the record, docket number 0842 is a petition of Local Motion of Boston for a license to operate motor vehicles for the carriage of passengers for hire over certain streets in Boston. Docket number 1158 is a petition of a second petition of Local Motion of Boston for a license to operate motor vehicles for the carriage of passengers for hire over certain streets in Boston. And finally, docket number 1159 is a petition of Above All Transportation for a license to operate motor vehicles for the carriage of passengers for hire over certain streets in Boston. Local Motion of Boston, the petitioner, as mentioned, for dockets 0842 and 1158 has requested a leave to withdraw those petitions, and the chair hereby does grant those withdrawals. So for this hearing, we will move forward with the presentation for docket number 1159, the petition of Above All Transportation. So if our representatives from BTD and BPD would please just introduce yourself quickly, and then we'll hand it over to the petitioner.
Hi, Brian McKinley, BTD.
Captain Jim Goggin, Boston Police Licensing Division.
Lieutenant Tom Lima, the Boston Police Hackney Unit Division.
Thank you.
Stephen Ward, Above All Transportation.
Wonderful. Councilor Flynn, do you want to make any opening statement or?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Councilman.
Great. So let's just walk through the requirements for the petition, and then we'll get into questions from there. So in the packet that the petitioner has presented, we have a copy of the notice of the hearing that it was published in the newspaper. We have mail receipts from notices sent to the police commissioner and to the MBTA. If you could please explain your background and any experience in this area of transportation.
I've been in the transportation, private transportation business for over 30 years, both as a general manager and presently with this company for the past 19 years as chief operating officer.
Great. And could you just give an overview of what the route is and what you're trying to accomplish with this?
This particular route, it was a dedicated route. We were hired by Mass Biologics at 460 Walk Hill Street to go directly to from their facilities to the Forest Hills T station to pick up their employees and bring them back, which is approximately 1.6 miles. It's out of their facilities. It's a right onto Walk Hill Street, all the way to the end to High Park Ave. Take a right on High Park Ave about 400 feet. Take a left onto Ukraine Street, about 100 feet. Take a right onto Washington. Pick up at the public pickup area, and then a right onto New Washington Street, about 100 feet on back onto Hyde Park Ave. Left back onto Walk Hill Street, and then back to 460 Walk Hill Street.
Do you have other routes presently with this service or your company?
No, we don't. We're a for hire basis. It's a private company. Most of them are, corporations hire us, so they say pick me up here at this point and drop me off here. So this is new to us and.
To run a fixed route?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Got it. And have you met with a representative of the Boston Transportation Department prior to this?
I actually spoke with, I apologize, give me one second. we went off. Mr. Hesford, he asked me to just email him the information. We spoke on the phone. He asked me to just email him the information. I did at his request.
Okay. And so just to clarify the pickup and drop-off locations, the one end will be on private property, Mass Biologics?
Yes,
Site,
correct.
and then the other outside Forest Hills station in the taxi drop-off zone, or where do you?
No, it's actually in the passenger pickup and drop-off area. There's a designated passenger pickup and drop-off area.
Okay.
It has, Monday through Friday, has a 15-minute, we're there for like 2 minutes.
Okay.
It has a 15-minute parking. It's a little turnout.
I know it, well, I go through there every single morning.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but please explain.
There's a little bump out or turnout for 15-minute parking, public parking. This was set up, I guess they had this, somebody had this contract before us. And this was the route that was set up for us by Mass Biologics.
And do you have written permission from the MBTA?
I had
to-
sent the copy of request to the MBTA for this. My understanding was, with speaking with Mass Biologic, where this was a public, what do you call it, pickup and drop-off area.
Okay. Okay, great. Brian, would you weigh in just on pickup and drop-off and any feedback from the Transportation Department on the routes or anything?
No, we have no problem with this request, so we support it.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so let's go into, why don't we go into a little bit of what the routes are, times of day, and then I want to hear about the public safety implications and feedback. Could you,
Certainly.
how many routes are you running?
The route, it starts at 6:30 in the morning at Forest T Station, and it's every half hour. So it's a pickup at 6:30 in the morning, 7 a.m., 7:30, 8 a.m., 8:30, 9 a.m., and 9:30. And then it breaks, and it starts back up again at the Forest Hills T Station at 2:30, 3, 3:30, 4, 4:30, 5, 5:30, 6, and 6:30. They did have one for any late-night personnel at 11:45 that we would pick up at Mass Biologic, and drop off by midnight to catch the last train out. They're doing some construction that lasted about 5 days. We've been doing it now for 2 months. They've put that on hold until further notice. So
How
we-
many vehicles does this involve to run this kind of route?
Just one.
Oh, just one.
We have one dedicated vehicle on this at this time.
And it seems a pretty tight turnaround, basically no stopping, but are there, if for some reason there's a lot of traffic or there's no traffic and you get there early, are there places that that the driver would sort of idle or wait to get to the proper time?
No, actually, I've asked my guys that, my chauffeurs that, and they said that it's pretty much on time. They said they spend about 4 minutes tops at the Forest Hill T Station.
Okay. And the passengers each passenger paying the company, paying your service, or does Mass Biologics pay for the whole thing?
Mass Biologics pays the whole thing, yes. It's a courtesy shuttle to the
Got it.
employees.
Okay. Officers, do you have any feedback or questions?
Good morning, councilors. We really have no opposition to this route or this request for a license. The one thing from a public safety standpoint that the Boston Police are always concerned about are the background checks of their drivers and their operators. I haven't heard Mr. Ward mention, but hopefully that's something that they address before they're picking up or dropping anybody off, that they have thorough background checks. But beyond that, the pickup at Biologics is on private property, and unlike other requests that we've had some opposition to, where there is a pickup and drop-off location outside of Forest Hills that's been dedicated for such things, that he says the maximum time to do so is 4 minutes. Usually they're less than 2 minutes with a small number. And this is a highly, I don't think that they have 14, potentially maximum 14 passengers would add to the congestion of the area of Forest Hill Station beyond where it's already at, as unlike other jitney hearings that we've attended in the past, where we've had concerns about changing the pedestrian traffic volume. I don't think that that's a consideration in this
Thank you, Captain.
case.
Lieutenant, do you have any feedback?
Madam Chair, just two things on to the gentleman from Above All Transportation. So would this be considered a minibus? What would you call your
It's a high-top van.
high-top van?
Yeah, it's not a minibus.
High-top van. And so what that is like any major MBTA station, such as South Station or North Station, which we oversee, you know, I would wonder how many other designated spots there are for, say, mom and dad to do drop-offs and pickups, that if we have one such bus, are we opening up the doors to that many more buses? So I think the space should be questioned to know, you know, does this take away opportunities for other vehicles, or has it always been designated for something like a minibus to do the drop-offs and pickups? That would be one. And two, I think you mentioned one bus. So this one bus will go from Forest Hill Stations to the facility and back, so it's like a 15-minute ride over, 15-minute ride back, roughly?
Correct. Yeah,
And
it's
do you know how
one-
many employees you would serve?
At this point, we just started. It's not something we've been keeping track of. I have asked my employees how many they're taking. Roughly, my understanding is they're picking up sometimes 6,
Okay.
sometimes 7, depending upon the time of day.
Okay, yeah, my only thought there would be, you know, do we get a mass at like 8 o'clock where they all show up at 8 o'clock, and we have a lot of people in the queue and, you know, taking up a lot of the area. So they're on board with the 6:30, 7, 7:30, right through 9:30. So hopefully their employees will come in, you know, increments and not show up all at, you know, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And then, you know, then that would be another question if you had a secondary bus. And right now it's one bus, but could that be elevated to 2 buses depending upon?
We had spoken with Mass Biologic about this, and one of the things too, as far as, you know, we realize that's a congested area, and we discussed that with them, that one of the things that was, we weren't going to hang around, that this was their schedule, it was set by them, and that, and it being a busy T station, that, you know, we couldn't just hang there.
Yeah.
And wait for people to get off a train.
Right.
So this was the schedule, so the thing was that we would pull up, wait a minute, they're either there or they're not.
Okay.
And we
That
leave.
would be my last piece, just, Madam Chair, that, you know, that the idle time, I think you had mentioned, would be from 2 to 4 minutes. Hopefully, within 2 minutes, that would get everyone on the bus, and they're not actually idling there for an extended amount of time in between the pickups, just in case at 8:30 nobody shows up,
Correct.
so the
Oh, no.
driver decides he's going to stay till 9 o'clock, you know?
No.
Okay.
And to address yours, I mean, I thought that was in the packet. We do extensive background checks on all our employees. So one of the things that we've instituted is we even require all of our employees, even sedan drivers, to have DOT medical cards. It's just something we instituted about 7 years ago because we thought it was going to come to tuition. Everybody gets a license check before they're ever hired. They go through intensive training at our facility. We do drug and alcohol testing, and we do extensive background checks, nationwide background checks on all of our employees, including Corey.
Okay, thank you.
Just following up on a few points. So how do you respond and solicit to passenger suggestions and complaints? Is there a mechanism for the employees to directly address any issues, whether it is the timing of the routes or overcrowding or anything like that?
Anytime, I mean, whether it be with this or with, you know, any of our businesses, I mean, if somebody brings something up to one of our chauffeurs or brings something up to Mass Biologics, we always address something like that. If Mass Biologics wants to change this route or wants to make it different, it's something that we would address with them. Obviously, they're our client. They're the ones that gave us this schedule. They're the ones that told us, this was the schedule, this is what you're bidding on, you know. They're the ones that came to us with it.
And just to note, the license that the city council would approve would set in detail the route, the number of vehicles, the timing. So if there were any changes, they would have to come back before the council to adjust the license too. Okay, so just to flesh out a little bit more, so the employees themselves don't have to pay if it's a courtesy shuttle. How much is does Mass Biologics pay a monthly contract to you?
Yes,
Okay, are you able to specify the amount?
I don't know.
Okay. What do you mean you don't know?
Yeah, how much Mass Biologics pays my company?
Yes,
I don't know I have no idea my CEO knows that amount. I have no idea what that amount
I
is.
see, okay.
I can get that to you if you'd like that, but
Yeah, but it's a standard to go
I'm
through
sorry,
the fair
I-
fair and payment system.
okay,
That would be
fine.
helpful.
No, that's no problem. I just have no idea.
Thank you. And you described it as high-top vans. You said a maximum of 14 passengers?
Correct.
Okay,
15 with the
with the driver. Great. And are these vehicles handicap accessible? I know my colleague has been just a dogged advocate on that front.
No, but I do have a contract with Darvell Boston Coach. If I need handicap accessible vans, I have a contract with them if I ever need them.
Do you have any questions on that front, Counselor?
Thank you, Councilor Wu. I just had two questions. So if someone is there and they do have a disability and the van is not accessible for them, what would the process be?
Well, again, this is something hired by a private company as a courtesy shuttle to their employees. Anytime that we've been in business with somebody that has come to us and asked us to supply something and have asked us for a handicap accessible van, and we've had that in situations where we've done it, we've reached out to other companies to help us out with that. This company didn't request that. So it was never brought up, it was never an issue. I would assume that if they hire somebody that's handicapped and this becomes an issue, then either A, we either buy one, or B, we supplement it with Darvell Boston Coach.
So on a typical day, how many passengers would you pick up at this spot?
I would have to get a count from my chauffeurs. I mean, we've only been doing it for 2 months. I don't have a real count on that. I could actually ask Mass Biologics what it is. Just from listening to my chauffeurs, I'm going to say probably roughly about 15 to 20 people in the morning. Same about going back.
Okay. And I know you do a thorough background check on drivers before they start, including drug and alcohol testing. But do you do a background check during their period of employment, looking at their driving record while they're an employee with your company?
All the time. I have it set up with my insurance company, and that's one of the processes we go through when we hire an insurance company. I mean, we spend an awful lot of money on insurance. That's one of the things that on a quarterly basis, they have to randomly run our chauffeurs. I mean, let's face it, I never know if they get speeding tickets or if they get, in accidents when they're not working for me, that would pull down their rating or have their license taken away for whatever reason. So, yes, my insurance company runs randomly my chauffeurs every quarter, pulls chauffeurs and runs them to see if anybody's either in trouble. Because on the merit rating system, we only hire chauffeurs that have 0 to 2. And I do that for pure economic reasons, okay? Because my insurance is very high with the amount of vehicles I have. So I don't hire guys with like 6, 7, 8s, and 9s, because that means their driving record is horrendous, and my insurance rates go through the roof. So I make sure that they keep that, 0 to 2. So I run them constantly.
What would, with the legalization or the potential legalization of marijuana, would drivers be able to test positive for marijuana and then continue working as a driver?
Not for us, it's already come up.
How did it come up?
I did a drug test, tested positive, said I have a license. I says, you may have a license, but not to work for me.
Okay.
I can't tell, like, when somebody smoked and when somebody didn't. I can't take, one of my clients', safety into, that I smoked 12 hours ago. I can't do that.
So the reason I'm asking about drug testing is my previous job, I was a probation officer, and I was very familiar with drug testing. But how often would you give random drug testing to your workers?
So we used to do with CDLs, the bus drivers, it's a random and it's in a pool. Excuse me. I found, and you happen to mention this, because of this problem, and it's coming, it's going to be legalized here soon, and it's a big problem for me. I mean, if it's legal, I'm wondering, am I going to be brought on the mat and being told, you have to let them drive? He can legally smoke marijuana. And I'm like, well, legally, I can't let him drive. So I think I'm going to get in trouble here pretty soon. But I don't think I need to let them drive, so I'm actually stepping up my process. So when I hire people and their drug tests come back negative, and I keep an eye on them, on the levels, okay? If somebody's a little out of whack, they get pulled more often than somebody else. I mean, it's a cost to me, but it's also, a cost of doing business.
It's probably something long-term that the city needs to take a look at is, when marijuana does become legal, not just in the transportation field, but in all fields, what is the criteria of someone testing positive? Are they still able to continue in their place of employment, especially if they're handling heavy equipment or driving a van or
Right.
interacting with the public? I think there probably has to be a clear set of guidelines on exactly what people can do and what they can't do while using marijuana.
I agree, because like I said, I mean, right now I'm flying blind. I have no idea what to do. I just doing what's right for the company. And one of the guys that I flagged, I told him, I said, I'm looking at you. And I told him, I says, you're going back for random drug testing. Never heard from him again.
Well, thank you for taking my questions.
No problem.
Thank you. I just had one more. One, I did want to note, the last requirement on here was a certificate of incorporation from the Secretary of State, and we have been provided a copy of that. And finally, it just says on the schedule page, UMMS reserves the right to select the schedule that best meets its business requirements, and UMMS will not require shuttle services on scheduled holidays or when directed. What is UMMS?
Oh, I'm sorry, United, I'm sorry, hang on one second. It's the University of Massachusetts. Sorry, hang on one second. University of Mass Medical and Sciences. It's Mass Biologics, it's really the University of Mass.
So just to clarify on that point, though, if the council approves this through a vote, it would freeze the schedule as is. So we would have to strike that language from any of these documents because the schedule would need to come back for a hearing if there are changes to that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or feedback from our panel? Thank you. We were not informed of anyone who wished to testify, but if anyone does at this time, please proceed. Seeing no takers. Well, thank you very much for your testimony and your participation. Thank you very much to our representatives.
Thank you.
We will likely take this up at the next council meeting, which I believe is September 12th. And in the meantime, I did want to reach out to the MBTA about the pickup drop-off zone being shared because, for the first one, it'll be fine, but as they come, and I can see that being an issue as well, but unlikely to affect it with this particular application. Captain, did you have any other comments?
No, I don't. Thank
Okay,
you,
okay.
Counselor Wu, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. At this time, hearing on docket number 1159, petition of Above All Transportation for a license to operate motor vehicles for the carriage of passengers for hire over certain streets in Boston is adjourned.